You're listening to the Communications Business Advisor podcast, the podcast for communications professionals in the corporate world who are committed to advancing their work and our field's reputation as critical business advisors that are not only invited to the decision-making table, but are required there. I'm your host, Tara McDonagh. Welcome to our first episode. As an activist for our field, I'm here to share my insight, bring in other leaders to the field for their perspectives here, and activate our field for growth surrounding the vision of achieving a corporate world that not only invites communicators to act as critical advisors, but expects them to act as critical advisors, complete with equal share of voice at the decision-making table. Because you're listening to this, you're likely already with me on this vision. We're not communications waitresses. We're not here to take your order. With much love for the server profession, it's just not what we do. We advance business goals and protect companies from crisis by using the lens of communications to advise. Internal communications, public relations, public affairs, crisis communications. It's all about advising the company using the lens of communications to achieve business goals. The most critical work that we will do in our careers is done without ever lifting a pen to write a word, or I guess to take that analogy into this century, without ever opening a laptop to type a sentence. My point is, the most critical work we do is the expertise that we use to advise leadership, to make business decisions more successful, to prevent a crisis from happening. I call this editing a business decision. And I often get asked what I mean by this. So that's where we're going to start today. As communicators, we're experts in our fields. We probably got into it because we're excellent writers and people told us that we should use that skill somehow. Maybe you were a journalist or an English major, or maybe you started off in this crazy field right from the jump in college like me. The point is, you're likely a good writer. And if you're in PR, you're probably also great at pitching, and your sense of newsworthiness is likely on par with the best reporters you pitch. If you're in public affairs, your knack for creating and managing relationships and seeing things that go unsaid are wildly strong, among other strengths. And you might have excellent project management skills no matter what part of communications you're in, because whether you wanted to or not, let's face it, you needed to hone this skill with all of the stuff that you're managing. But what's rarely recognized, discussed, or celebrated in our field is our biggest asset, our brains. Our counsel, our ability to always connect the bigger picture and see the details that can harm or help achieve a goal. Our creativity in finding new ways of doing things that connect to that goal. We can look at a business decision and sit in a room listening to it for the very first time and see all the many cracks in it, or the gaping holes that haven't been decided yet, or that will cause a crisis. And we sit in that room asking questions that we think are so obvious, we're almost embarrassed to ask them. We think to ourselves, how am I the first one asking this question? Is this too simple of a question? Will I seem dumb for asking it? But time and again, we find that we are the first ones to see this giant hole, the very first ones. No one else thought of it quite like we did. So we do our work editing the decision. Now, when you edit copy, you're not throwing that copy in the trash, right? You're looking to improve it, to make it stronger, to make it resonate. You might eliminate an unnecessary or confusing paragraph, make a sentence more concise, change the structure, but the outcome is still to relay that message that you got in the first draft. When you edit a business decision, the same principle applies. You're looking at what the company is attempting to accomplish, and you're asking questions that lead you to an understanding of the approach. And through that process, you advise. You advise to improve on the decisions to better meet the business goal. So why don't we talk about a practical example here? Your company might have decided to return to the office full-time, and you're brought in to communicate the decision about this, right? So you're told to write something. This is the first time you're brought in. And yet, none of the basics have been decided other than the fact that return to the office is the thing that you're supposed to communicate. And there's a general timeline around when they, meaning executives, want it to occur. Now, how many of you are laughing out there in solidarity right now? Or maybe you're cringing? Most of you, I know, I see you. Here's what a communications business advisor does in this scenario. They ask questions to get to the detail. And through that process, people see just how off the mark they are with either the decision itself or with the methods in which to deploy the decision. You might start with the very highest level question. I'm betting many of you are out there with me on this one. This is a question no one has asked yet. Why are we returning to the office? Is there a concern about productivity, about engagement, about retention? Is there pressure from investors or customers or the board? What's the CEO's perspective on why this will be the ideal solution to whatever ails the company? What's the timeline? Why this particular timeline? What happens with special circumstances, like when an employee was working remotely before the pandemic? If someone moved away from the office with permission from leadership at the time, how will those situations be managed? More often than not, your questions will at the very least lead to a delay in the communication of the decision because no one has thought of it like this. No one has dealt with the big picture and the seemingly minor details or exceptions that can derail the entire goal. Now, hopefully you've been involved in the discussions and decisions along the way. I hope. But if not, your questions will likely lead to that delay because no one has thought of them again. No one has thought of them until now. You aren't delaying the project. You're making it more successful. Seriously, what's easy for us to see is not easy for others. Don't underestimate yourself and the impact of your brain on the business. And as you're advising your questions and your counsel on how this will be perceived by the audience, in this example, the employee, leads to changes in how things are done. I'm not saying that they'll change their mind about a return to the office. I mean, it's possible, especially in the light of the questions you'll ask about what problem they're really trying to solve. I've been in plenty of situations where a decision shifts because the approach didn't meet the intended goal, but it doesn't always change. And sometimes the approach is spot on, but the methods of decisions along the way are off base. At the very least, how it's communicated and some of the policies might shift or change because you're grounding the decision makers back to the broader goal. Efficiency, engagement, retention, some other goal that they're trying to achieve with this tactic. The tactic in this case being return to the office. Other people's perspectives at the company are on a specific business area expertise. So the CFO focuses on financial results. The COO focuses on process and efficiency. The head of marketing on customer reactions. Your focus is uniquely centered around the entire company and all reactions from all audiences that matter. And that view is critical. Your role is critical. Now, I also realize your role is also likely oversimplified every single day. People may think of you as an excellent writer, or as one of my clients said, her boss, who did not have communications experience or expertise, thought of the corporate communications department as an area that's helpful when needing to share something. They're good writers, they get things done, they're helpful. But this person was missing an essential way to truly unlock potential of communications. She was missing the concept of editing business decisions. She was missing the idea that communications isn't a helpful department, but an essential one that could unlock a whole host of methods to earn additional revenue for the company in the form of better operational efficiency, better recruitment and retention, better customer awareness, and very literally more money. Public affairs, public relations, internal communications, executive communications, crisis communications, all of these have an essential role to play in making a company successful. Now, getting your executive team on the same page as you is another challenge and another conversation for another day. But first, let's start here with you and your team. Let's embrace the critical role that you play. Let's recognize that not everyone sees what you see. Let it sink in that you play an essential role in your organization. A role that, if you can truly embrace, you will gain additional respect, money, team resources, and recognition for what it is that you do. Changing minds starts with you. Teach people how to treat you as the critical business advisor you are. In future episodes, we'll dig into all kinds of topics that address both embracing this communications business advisor role and teaching others about how to expect it from you and from your colleagues in the field. I shared earlier that my vision for our field is to achieve a corporate world that not only invites communicators to act as critical business advisors, but expects them to act as these advisors, complete with equal share of voice at the decision-making table. It's the difference between being told, sure, you can come to the meeting, and being told, we require you at this meeting because we can't move forward without your advice. Yes, it's my vision, but it's not something that can be accomplished alone. Visions are supposed to be bigger than ourselves, and this one definitely is. As an activist in our field, I'm sharing this vision, and I'm hoping you will join me in achieving it. Will you join me? This is a movement we can achieve together. That's it for today's episode. If you're interested in working with me to advance your work and your team's reputation as critical business advisors, never order takers, check out Tara at taramcdonagh.com. Thanks for listening to the Communications Business Advisor podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a rating or a review. It helps people find us, and we can't ignite a movement without sharing the message. See you next time, where we'll continue to do the work to elevate our field's reputation and elevate the careers of the people in it. The Communications Business Advisor podcast is brought to you by Raise the Tide, the program for women communications leaders and emerging leaders working in the corporate environment. Raise the Tide is part community, part coaching, part professional development, and part mentorship. The program advances women in their careers and activates these trailblazers to advance our vision of a corporate world that not only invites communications leaders to act as critical advisors, but expects them to. A rising tide raises all ships, but we're not the ships. Together, we're the force of the tide, raising the ships for our entire industry. For more information, visit www.raisethetide.net.